Crime is sexy.
5 most brutal killers reacting to a death sentence. They've committed the most heinous of crimes, taking lives and destroying families. They've been found guilty, and now they're facing the ultimate punishment, the death sentence. These are the 5 most brutal killers, each with their own unique story, who will be reacting to the news of their fate. Will they show remorse for their actions, or will they lash out in anger and defiance as they await their judgment? Tension builds and emotions run high. Get ready to witness the chilling reactions of some of the world's most infamous murderers as they come face to face with the ultimate consequence of their crimes. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe to get the latest updates from us. Number 1. Michael Brady. A notorious criminal was serving his sentence in Pascotank Correctional Institution in North Carolina. He'd been convicted of attempted murder after shooting at a state trooper and was facing 24 years in prison. However, his sentence took a deadly turn when he attempted to escape and ended up killing 4 prison workers. Brady's actions were described as brutal as he stabbed one worker multiple times and hit another with a hammer until he stopped moving. During the trial, the prosecutors argued that Brady had planned the attack and showed no remorse for his actions. Witnesses testified that Brady beat one worker, George Midget, like he was trying to bust concrete. Another witness described the scene as a bloodbath, with blood covering the floor of the elevator where the workers were attacked. Despite the overwhelming evidence against him, Brady took the stand during his sentencing and declared that he would tell the truth regardless of the consequences. When asked if he believed he was crazy, he denied it, but also admitted to knowing the difference between right and wrong. He acknowledged the murder was wrong, but when asked if his freedom was more important than the lives of the workers he killed, he callously responded, yes. The jury unanimously recommended the death penalty for Brady, and the judge agreed. Brady showed no emotion as the sentence was read out, and he was sent to Colorado to await his execution. The case of Michael Brady serves as a chilling reminder of the brutality that can exist in the criminal justice system and the consequences of giving in to one's impulses. Number 2, we have Austin Myers and Timothy Mosley, 2 young men from Waynesville, Ohio, who planned to rob a safe belonging to Justin Back's father. However, things went horribly wrong when they strangled Justin with choke wire and stabbed him 21 times. Justin was begging for his life, but the 2 men showed no mercy. During the trial, Mosley turned against Myers in exchange for a plea bargain which landed him a life sentence. On the other hand, Myers pled for his life, begging the jury to spare him for the sake of his family. He claimed that the death penalty would only cause more pain and suffering for innocent people. Justin's father also had a chance to speak at the trial. He didn't express his hatred for the murderers, but rather hoped that they would forever see his son's face whenever they closed their eyes at night. The jury recommended the death sentence for Myers, and he had one last chance to plead for his life in front of the judge. He claimed that he could do good things with his life if given the opportunity, but the judge didn't buy it. Myers was sentenced to death for the aggravated murder of Justin Back. At just 19 years old, Myers became the youngest person in Ohio to be placed on death row. He's currently awaiting his execution at Chillicothe Correctional Institution. The senseless murder of Justin Back destroyed many lives, and all for nothing, as there was no money in the safe that they were trying to steal. Number 3, Nico Jenkins. Nico Jenkins was a name that struck fear into the hearts of people in Omaha, Nebraska. A cold-blooded killer who went on a rampage, ending the lives of 4 innocent individuals in the span of just 10 days. The 15-year-old Jenkins was no stranger to the criminal justice system, having already served a 10-year sentence in prison for carjacking and assault. But when he was released, he proved that his time behind bars did nothing to rehabilitate him. It all started with a robbery that quickly turned deadly. Jenkins shot and killed 2 individuals in cold blood, leaving the city in a state of panic. But he wasn't done yet. Just 8 days later, he tracked down a former inmate he'd met in prison and shot him dead in his own garage. It was clear that Jenkins had a vendetta against anyone who crossed him. But Jenkins didn't stop there. 2 days after the second murder, he killed his 4th victim in a carjacking. The police were hot on his trail and arrested him on unrelated charges. It was here that they were able to link the ammunition used in one of the killings to Jenkins. Jenkins knew he'd been caught and pleaded no contest to all 4 accounts of first-degree murder. He waived his right to a jury trial, knowing that his fate would be decided by a 3-judge judge panel. The panel found him guilty on all counts and declared that each murder was a deliberate and planned act. The sentence was clear: the death penalty. But even as the verdict was read out, Jenkins remained unfazed. He sat still, with no movement or emotion on his face. The panel stated that the death penalty was appropriate, should be given, and was hereby given for each of the 4 murders by the defendant. Jenkins was transferred to the Nebraska State Penitentiary to await his execution. His name would go down in history as one of the most notorious killers in Omaha's history, a man who showed no remorse for his heinous crimes. The city could finally rest easy, knowing that Nico Jenkins would never be able to hurt anyone again. Fourth, we have Marta Abraham. Abraham was a troubled man who worked at a Walmart in South Haven, Mississippi. He'd been caught with a knife in the store and was facing suspension. He was a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. On the day of his suspension, he came back to the store with multiple weapons and opened fire on his co-workers. He shot and killed store managers Anthony Brown and Brandon Gales in cold blood. As chaos erupted in the store, one victim's wife was there to witness the horrific scene. She watched as her husband's colleague Anthony Brown took his last breaths. She begged him to say her name one more time, hoping that somehow he would miraculously survive, but it was too late. He was gone. Abraham's violent rampage did not stop there. He also shot an officer who miraculously survived due to his bulletproof vest. Abraham was arrested on site and later admitted to all of the crimes. In court, the evidence against Abraham was overwhelming. He was shown surveillance footage of himself shooting his former co-workers, and he admitted in doing so in cold blood. The judge had heard enough and sentenced Abraham to death for his heinous crimes. Abraham stood silently in the courtroom, knowing he had no hope of escaping the consequences of his actions. The victim's wife was there to deliver her victim impact statement. She shared how Abraham had taken her husband from her on the exact day 20 years earlier that they had their first date. She spoke of how she would never be able to celebrate that day again without thinking of the loss of her beloved husband. As Abraham sat on death row awaiting his execution, he knew that he had destroyed the lives of countless people with his violent actions. His fate was sealed, and there was nothing he could do to change it. Lastly, at number 5, we have Marquis Lloyd. Lloyd was a man with a dark past, having already killed his pregnant ex-girlfriend and now a police officer. Lloyd was a wanted man. Despite his claims of being framed for the crimes he committed, the evidence was clear and the jury found him guilty. Lloyd took the stand and tried to justify his actions, claiming he was reacting and everyone was out to kill him. During his trial, the victim's family members gave emotional impact statements expressing their pain and sorrow. The sister of Lieutenant Clayton stood in place of their mother who'd passed away. Her voice trembled as she spoke about how much she missed her sister and how much her death had affected her family. When the jury recommended the death sentence, Lloyd seemed to mouth something to the public before erupting in an outburst, claiming that people had been trying to kill him and frame him for murder. Despite his protests, the judge agreed with the jury's recommendation and Lloyd was sentenced to death. Now Lloyd sits behind bars waiting for his execution, his outbursts and claims of being framed a distant memory. The family of his victims will never forget the pain and loss they endured, but they take solace in the fact that justice has been served. What are your thoughts? Do you believe these crimes deserve the sentence? Let us know in the comments section below. Don't forget to click subscribe and we'll see you in the next video.